I sat down in my counselor's office for the first time in a long time. And I noticed she had this little placard and it said, "Choose joy." So, this is my very first solo podcast episode um, ever. This is my first time hosting a podcast episode in 3 years. The last time I worked on a podcast was back in 2021, and I had an amazing time being someone's temporary co-host for their Pride Month edition for their podcast. But after many years of being a little bit in the dark, growing in the dark, I should say, um, I've had some time to be able to grow and get to this point. So I'm excited. um, for those who don't know me, my name is Xavier Khalil. I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. Currently, I am based in South Carolina. Um, a little bit about me and kind of how I started getting into content creation or how I even developed the passion for it was a passion for social justice advocacy. Combining those passions of social justice advocacy and content creation led me to TikTok, and it was especially during the year 2020. There were so many things going on. George Floyd, um, especially being that. And there was just so many things that was happening in the world at that time that, it would be really hard to kind of put me back into that space to, get back there to say everything, but I'm rambling. Um, I just wanted to be able to say something to the world that would inspire them and let them know like there's so much more than just recognizing the horrible things in the world with the view of sadness. So I then created a series called 25 Days of Remembrance, and that is where I honored the lives of those whose lives were taken at the hands of hate, whether it was police brutality or just plain old racism. I then, instead of using their stories of what happened to them that led them being victims, I rather would have told the stories of who they were and the lives that they led through the lens of their family members, and that required going through some articles and some newspapers and some interviews, and that right there was how I then began to garner attraction of followers on TikTok, and that series of 25 Days of Remembrance then grew to another series called Queer Black History, and after a while of doing that type of work, I then just kind of went into hiding. And we'll get into that in this episode of why I went into hiding. But most of the point for me going into hiding, quote unquote, was because of the simple fact I was in school, still am in school. I'm getting my master's right now, but I was very focused in my undergraduate studies. And like I said, we'll get into all of that in this episode. But I was just very into my undergraduate studies, and as much as I really did want to create content, it was content creation or being a scholar. And even though I could have very well tried to find a way to weave the two in together, like I did back in 2020, I was just like, I let me focus on my school, and that's what I did. I started focusing on my schoolwork. That's what took priority. Um, so with all of that said, that's still not all of me, and that's cool. We have this whole entire season to get to know me, and hopefully me being able to connect with y'all through my stories, and my narratives. And we're gonna continue to move on. And I'm sorry if this seems a little unorganized. Like I said, it's my first time, but I got some notes right here to kind of help me out. And I want to move on to my next segment of the show, which is called Today's Notation. And today's notation, it pretty much acts as an affirmation. And this affirmation that I want to give you all is very personal, to the point that it was my first tattoo. And it is, you are safe, you are loved, you are not alone. Again, it is, you are safe, you are loved, you are not alone. I would love to give y'all the story behind that because it is a very good one, and it's one born out of it ain't not it's one born out of trauma, but it got me through it. I was going through it and it got me through it. So when I was first going through my spells of panic attacks and anxiety in high school in my senior year, um, I was really having a hard time, feeling safe. It didn't matter where I was, whether I was at school, in the general public, church. I just never felt safe. And it was for many underlying issues. And like I said, we got a whole season to get into all of that. But there were so many things that I was feeling. And the only way that they would express themselves, those negative feelings, was through panic attacks. My cousin, who I lived with at the time, um, she was one of those people who was in it with me, like all the way in it with me. Um, I'm talking, she has held me in the middle of my panic attacks. And this one night, I literally woke up out of my sleep in a panic attack. I woke up out of my sleep in a panic attack and I ran to her room, which was just right down the hall from mine. And um, she turned on her room light. She embraced me in her arm. She held me and she started singing Never Lost a Battle. And she started saying, "You are safe, you are loved, you are not alone." She just kept rubbing my head. And the moment she kept saying that over and over and over again, I began to say it and I began to believe it. And it took me to a place of solace and calm. And at that moment, I truly believed that I am safe, I am loved, I am never alone. And that's how I began to kind of really feel the love of God through every point from then on. That no matter what it is that I'm going through, no matter if I am the only person in the room, um, even if I am not the only person in the room, even if it feels like I am safe, I am loved, I am not alone. So that's today's notation for me and for you and forever. You are safe, you are loved, you are not alone. So now moving on to the next segment of Choosing Joy is the journal entry. And the journal entry is a quick little snippet of some stories, some thoughts, some prayers. Mostly from me, sometimes from others. Um, so I really hope that you all enjoy this because then we'll be getting into the narrative, which is pretty much the whole premise of why we're here today and what this whole episode is about. So we're going to move on to the journal entry, and then right after that, we'll get into the narrative. I've been trying to challenge my ego and my pride by not allowing those emotions to contradict my actions. I'm also trying to let go of shame and ego and embrace love, but that is hard too. All in all, I know how it feels in these moments. Lonely. More than just loneliness, but war. An internal war of trying to be someone better than I was before. Trying to let the shadows of our former selves die and embrace the light that burns within us is equally difficult, especially in these depressing episodes. It feels like the shadows begin to get the upper hand. Knowing the names of these shadows, ego, shame, and pride, I desire to let them go. However, it feels like they don't want to let me go. But what matters is that I do. I know that I am meant to be free and love freely. I'm challenged to show the light blessed by God within me. And what's funny is that deeply in these depressions, the light shines just as bright. And the fear of being free is attached to the shame and ego and the safety that comes with that. I'm tired of living like this, so no more suppressing. Thank you for listening to this journal entry. Now let's go ahead and roll into the narrative. All right. Welcome back. I hope y'all enjoyed the narrative. I hope it touched you. I hope that it made you think. And I hope that you will find it very relevant to the narrative today. Today's episode, of course, you may know it is Joy in the Morning. It is something that I live by. It's a quote that I live by. It's in scripture. Don't ask me which one. I am not a Bible scholar. I want to get up here and pretend. But it's true to the game. It's true to the word. And it's true to life. Joy in the morning. Um, I wanted to take us back to 2022 because that's kind of when I would say went into disappearance. Um, Back in 2022, like I said, I was really in that mode of being a student. Like, let's focus on this degree. I was already on track to graduate early. So 2022, I was 19, going on 20. And I was just like looking at everything ahead of me. I was like, I'm getting ready to graduate. And I really want to be able to immerse myself in this collegiate experience. I want to have a ball. I want to have a time. Like, that's literally where I was. I'm like, I just want to be able to be a scholar, be a student, have fun, and, really continue to put myself out there. Um, Content creation was something that I always knew I wanted to pretty much make a career out of one day. So it was like it was never not going to be in the picture, but I knew, one, I was not ready to pursue something like this just yet because I wasn't mature. I don't think I lived enough yet. Still ain't lived enough yet, but compared to from then to now, I've definitely matured in how I view the world. And two, it was just that overall wanting to have that experience and really wanted to be immersed in that. So picture it. Little old PWI in South Carolina, 2022. I just crossed as an alpha. My ex broke up with me over text. No, matter of fact, he didn't even break up with me over text. The man blocked me. He just blocked me overnight. No reason at all. It's cool though. I ain't hurt. But I just crossed. I just got accepted into this research program that we're really going to get into because this is kind of when things began to be a roller coaster ride. But I just got into this research program that I was really, really excited to get into. And it's crazy because I crossed as an alpha and I got accepted into the research program on the same exact day. It's funny how God works. And I was, like I said, getting ready for my senior year. So I am lit right now. I'm having the time of my life. You know, DMs is popping, all of the things, all of the things. But that's all besides the point because still I'm in that mode of, one, being a scholar, two, having fun. Just like literally just having fun and wanting to experience life. So going into the summer, I had just come back from Denver. I'm on my way to go to this summer research program, and I'm really, really excited. I had already made the decision with myself that I wouldn't be returning to Atlanta for extended breaks. And that was why I was really like pressing myself to get accepted into that research program because I knew I didn't want to return home. So it was like Ronald E. McNair Scholars Program or nothing at all. Um, so luckily I was blessed with that opportunity. And like I said, it's a 6-week research program. I was at the University of South Carolina in Columbia, and I was with a bunch of other people who were from different USC campuses and HBCUs in South Carolina. And I was able to create like spectacular bonds with them. These people I still keep in touch with to this day, and they are just the most well-rounded, supportive group of people. I'm very thankful to them, and they really helped me get through this time. But just like knowing that I was going to be in this space with other people who are like-minded, I knew I was going to be like in this whole season and era of growth. And little did I know like this would be the time where I would realize like growth is going to be a continuous thing. Life has very high highs, but man, do the lows get low. So it's the first 2 weeks of the program. It's kind of relaxed, even though we know it's about to start picking up. So my birthday is, I think, the first weekend that we get into the program. So I done planned a big old party in my room. Like I have everybody in there. We're vibing, listening to music, eating cake, faded, all the things. Like we're just having a good time and enjoying life. And in that moment, I thought like, man, like my 20s are gonna be a thing. Like I just turned 20, so and I was already like kind of nervous about turning 20. If y'all hear my dog, please excuse him. But I was, just really excited, nervous but excited. And I was like, I'm really growing up. And I was like, this is so real. But I didn't expect to grow up real fast either. Um, because about 2 weeks after my birthday, my great grandmother, she passed on a Sunday. And now my great grandmother, she passed of Alzheimer's. And she had been living with it for about 8 years at that point. Um, the last time that I saw my grandmother um, at her best self was when I was 14, which was shortly after she had just had a stroke. Um, and over the years, just seeing your loved one who has that illness, um, slowly fade away. And I remember the last time that I saw her, I believe it was on Thanksgiving, and she didn't remember me. Um, and it hurt me. And I remember 2 years before that, she didn't remember my mom. My mom would always have to work and things like that. So when my mom did come around, she didn't remember my mom. And it was just very, very sad because I remember, my grandmother when I was a very little boy, like very young little boy, I would go down there for a summer or two out of my childhood and she would still drive. She was still spanking. She was still cooking. And she was still cleaning. She was, she was very hyper independent. And then over the years, you see her not be that anymore. She's the matriarch and we love and revere her, but she's not her anymore. So when I got the news, I was able to accept it a little easier. Um, because of the simple fact that I had seen her go away slowly. And to know that she was finally back whole in heaven with herself and her loved ones in heaven, her husband, her mama, her, all of her people and her family, I found more solace in that because for a long time she was going away. Well, this is where things kind of get very real because 2 days later, I didn't really process her death, you know, and sadness. It was more so like, gratitude that God took her home and stopped her suffering. But on this day, I did feel the sadness for her. I felt sad that my grandma wasn't, here anymore. And granted, she lived a long life. She was healthy. She was loved. You still lose somebody. So I felt that for her. And I remember we were in the McNair class. We were doing a workshop because, it's just one of the things that was a part of the program. And I was sitting down, thinking about my great grandmother, and I left the classroom a little teary-eyed, very discreetly though. Because I just wanted to kind of like have that moment, shed my tear or two for her, thank God, and go back and continue throughout the day. Well, soon as I sit down, I get a text message from a cousin of mine on my dad's side. Um, and mm, trying to remain organized because I'm feeling a lot of feelings. But I get a text from my cousin on my dad's side, and she says, Bam, that's my nickname, Bam Bam, on my dad's side. Bam, I just got off the phone with my sister. It sounds chaotic, pretty much. It's screaming and yelling, it's crying. My dad's in the background crying, she's talking about her dad. And I think it's your dad. Talk about my dad. And mind you, I'm still in the middle of my workshop, I'm slightly emotional from the loss of my grandmother. In this, I don't really know how to react. I just draw in a deep breath, you know what I mean? and I'm handling my facial expressions very well through all of this. Like nobody can pretty much tell like what's going through my head or what's going on in my phone. So I'm just keeping myself pretty controlled because, I'm in this setting with all my peers. I don't really want them to see me like this and they only know me for like 2 weeks. Um, so I was like, okay. And we're about to have a break anyway, so I was gonna call her as soon as we left the classroom because she texted me that maybe 15 minutes before we left the classroom. Anyways, they dismissed us early, so we left maybe 5 minutes after I got that text, and I'm pretty much like speed racing to my dorm where they have us staying at. I run into my room and texting her back and forth like just keep me posted. I'm on the phone with her, keep me posted, call me, let me know like what's going on because it sounds like it's a medical emergency. And they were racing him to the hospital. So I was just telling her, keep me posted on what's going on. Let me know how your sister's doing because her sister was with my dad. Let me know how your dad's doing. Just keep me posted. Um, and she did just that, and I thank her to this day for doing that. Um, she was the one to let me know that my dad was gone. And when I got that text, I dropped my phone and I screamed. I like, yeah. And one of my roommates, he comes into the room and he's like, "Are you good?" And I said, "No, my dad died." And he's approaching to hug me out of empathy because he lost his dad. And I said, "Don't touch me." I said, "I'm fine." I said, "I'm fine." And he's like, "Okay." He walked out the room. And I collected myself because all of like my room was pretty much the hangout room. Like all the boys, like everybody used to come up to the boys' room. So everybody was in there, and I walked out. Everybody's kind of like looking and staring, and I BS you not. I did just like this. I said, "My dad died. I'm fine. Let's go." And we walked out. And from that point on, I've felt so many emotions at once. But the most prominent emotion that I felt at that point was anger. And I'm going to tell you why. Me and my dad's relationship, it was estranged. Meaning he and I, we were in a cool place, but we weren't close. Me and my dad had I don't want to label it a difficult relationship because difficult would imply like we never got along. But it was one of those relationships that I feel I can't necessarily put a description on. And that was the thing that upset me. That was the thing that made me angry. Is that here I am, knowing that I lost a very strong part of me. I lost a parent, but I don't have the relationship to describe how this loss has impacted me. Because the thing is I knew who my father was. My dad lived right down the road from me, but I didn't see him often. And I could have pointed to him not being able to understand what it was like to love a child like me. I could say it was the relationship between he and my mom. I could say it was the relationship between me and him. I could say it was a lot of things, but the truth is that I will never know because I unfortunately didn't have the conversation with him when I had the chance. And another reason why I was upset was that, the last time that I did hear from him was not directly from him. It was on my birthday, but my cousin just told me to, that my dad wished me happy birthday. And I didn't feel any way about it. I didn't feel, like why he didn't text me and tell me happy birthday. I just told her, tell him I said thank you. But that could have been the opportunity for me to have said something or him to have said something. And then 10 months just before he passed, I saw him at the same cousin who let me know that he did pass. I saw him at her birthday. But my dad was in bad shape. Like I said, it was a medical emergency. And I want to talk with my family more before I share more of his story. So I won't get into all of the details. But my dad wasn't in the best shape. When I saw him, it was a quick hi and bye, and I I was trying my best not to um what's the word? It's not necessarily project, but I wasn't necessarily trying to like take that in. Um as it was meant for me. Like he didn't want to talk to me, like he just didn't want to deal with me. Because he wasn't in the best shape. He was very sick and he was battling a sickness. And so I don't think he wanted me to see him like that. Because the dad that I knew, he was fat faced with grills, you know. Like he was a healthy guy. That's the dad that I knew. And the version that I saw of him the last time that I saw him, I don't think he wanted me to see him like that. And so I was wrestling with, not only do I not have the relationship to describe, why I feel these feelings, but then also the last time we were together in the same room, you didn't even talk to me or have the conversation. So I was mad at him. I was really upset with him. And then also that upsetness and that anger was mixed with a little bit of jealousy too. And you have to understand this. When my dad passed, he had stronger, um, he had strong relationships with my cousins and my other siblings, like my brother and my sister. He had really close relationships with them. And so they're posting pictures like, um, their birthdays. You get what I'm saying? They're posting their birthdays with him where he's cooking on the grill for them. Prom pictures, graduation photos, all the memories, all the things that I don't have with him. Family photos, I felt like I missed out. And I felt like how they got all of this and I don't. And I wasn't mad at them for posting those memories because how dare I be upset with my family for posting the memories with my dad, who they're going to miss just as much as I am. Hell, probably even more because they were with him on the day to day. But I've sat there and I look back and I'm like, I don't have a single picture with him. I don't have a single memory of us together photographed with each other, you know? And it broke my heart. It pissed me off. It made me mad because I remember giving him so many opportunities to be there for me. I remember so many conversations for him to have been there. The opportunity for us to have talked about so many things and we never talked about them. And I was just like, why? And I remember the last time that we did have like a real conversation was when I was 15 and it was on my account. And I remember because I just felt guilty about hating him. Like when I was 15, y'all, and I told him this. And I'm glad that we talked about it when it was that. Because I hated him. And I hated him in silence. But it was killing me in silence as well. Like it was really calling me to a point of conviction for real. And I remember I called him one day and I said, "Hey Dad, I just want to call you and tell you I forgive you. And I'm sorry that I felt these strong feelings of hatred towards you." And he also apologized. And he said that I'm sorry that I couldn't be the dad that you needed me to be. And I had to keep replaying that memory over and over again. Because the thing is I got my closure well before his death came. And I think that's what hurt me also. Because I mourned the loss of him before he even left the earth. Which means that I spent years avoiding having a relationship with somebody who wasn't even in the ground yet. He was still alive and well, and I saw him. I knew he was there. I had a car by this point, and I didn't see him, and I chose not to. I had a phone, and I chose not to. And I know, and hell, don't get me wrong, I was saying he's the parent. He should be calling me. And I still feel that way sometimes. But I also take accountability in the sense that I wanted that relationship too. And maybe I would have felt a little bit more peace when he first passed if I actually had tried. Um, so I said a lot of mean things about my dad, when he first passed. I went like on a whole spam page rant on Instagram talking about like every single poor memory that I had of him. Like ditching my birthday, or me playing football and him not showing up to a game. And hell, I hated football. Like, imagine me playing football, first of all. Like, can we get to that? Imagine me playing football, but I'm doing it for the attention and the approval of my dad. Mm, mm. And I was just so mad at those things. But I didn't keep replaying that memory when I was 15 and we had that deep conversation. Or that time where we went to Pensacola, Florida, and we had another deep conversation or just chilled in each other's company. Or when he would cook me my favorite meals. Or when I did go over to Thanksgiving to his house that year and it was fun and he was the chef and everybody like was, praising him about his cooking. Because my dad was a chef. Before anything, that man was a chef. And everybody loved his cooking. And I replayed the bad memories more than the good memories. When in all actuality, I needed to like hold hold the good and the bad. Because the thing is that with the good and the bad memories, I can honor my dad as a human being. And I'm gonna get to that in just a moment, but I want to take y'all to the funeral because I was battling with myself of whether or not I was going to go to the funeral because I had said some things, because I had felt away. And excuse me for those who are listening, I am a little stuffy. I'm getting over the cold. I'm just not recognizing that I didn't say anything. But I was debating with myself whether or not I was going to go. And when I did decide I was going to go, I decided off of ego. I BS you not. This is what I said. I'm going to go and pay my respects for him because it's the least that I can do. Like, how egotistical is that? Like, I have to, like, I want to go back to myself sometimes and, like, slap the piss out of me because, like, how dare I sometimes? You know what I mean? Like, I was doing him a favor by going to his funeral. And I literally looked at it that way at that time. Up until the very point that I got that obituary and they handed me his obituary. That's when I cried. That's when it hit me. I don't have a dad anymore. That's when I realized I don't have a dad no more. His face is on a picture. This is the only picture that I have of my dad. This and the other pictures inside of this obituary. This is all I got. That's all I got. And I spent all that time, that whole week, leading up to his funeral, mad at him, jealous of my other family members for having the relationship with him that I wanted. Only to then get to the funeral to realize what I should have realized all along. That I lost a part of me. I lost a parent. Regardless of what the relationship was, it is what it is. It was what it was. And it'll never be the same or what I want it to be. And that's okay. But regardless, I lost a parent. I lost somebody that I knew. Somebody who was responsible for me being on this earth just as much as my mom was for carrying me 9 months. You know? He used to always say, "Boy, I created you. You came from my nuts." You know? And I mean, he ain't lying. Cause without him there would be no me. Just like without him there would have been no him with it and there would not have been no me. You know? And I had to wrestle with that. I really, really, really had to wrestle with that. Um, so after all of that, after the funeral, I went back to my research program because this was all in between, and I poured all of my hurt and my trauma, my guilt, my grief into my work. And the rest of the summer, I ignored it. I thought that the cry at the funeral was good enough. I thought that honoring my dad in my research project and telling a couple of scholars about him at Baylor University in Texas was gonna, make me feel a little bit better. And I thought putting myself back into school, getting back into that mindset and that mode of being a student and getting ready for grad school and all of those things, thinking that that was all gonna help me keep from being sad or thinking of my dad in a sad way. Like I'm thinking like, oh, I'm gonna be able to honor him in these ways. But two things can be true at the same time. Because while I was honoring him in my scholastics, I was ignoring the fact that he was dead. And around the time of September, October, and there was a lot going on around this time that just made me decide that this is the time I need to take to be able to just kind of focus on me. Because my emotions is all over the place. I don't know what it is that I'm feeling. I just know I'm not feeling like me. And I know what depression and anxiety feels like. At that point I was very well aware, like, okay, this may be what's about to be happening and I need to get myself in order. But it was so much bigger than just a regular depression and anxiety. I was grieving all over again. The feelings of sadness, of depression, of denial, to lead to that point of acceptance all happened between October and November. Y'all, November, really October 2022 was really hard. I don't even know if I want to get into all of it, but it was really, really hard. And y'all, I was a mean person. I was a bitch. I was, I was so mean and bitter. And I knew why I was bitter. I'm walking around here stressed as a stressed. And I'm ignoring the fact that I don't have a dad no more, but I can't even, pay attention to that because hell, my grace period has expired to the rest of the world because that happened 2 months ago, even though I didn't take the time to address it then because I was doing research. And then I went back to school the literal month after completing the research to then get back into more research to then try and do 21-hour credits so I can try and I was doing too much and I was feeling too much. And one day, I remember it was a sunny day. And you couldn't tell me I wasn't about to have the brightest day. It was so sunny and blue. And I remember I pulled down the sun visor and my dad's obituary fell on my Alpha Phi Alpha paraphernalia pullover. And my dad, he knew nothing about college, but he knew I wanted to be in a frat. And Wipe Me Down was his favorite song. And I never got to stroll for him. And so when that moment happened, that's when I really started to go down that river of grief real bad. I was like, this is the moment I wanted him to be proud of the most. Because to be honest, I crossed Alpha because not only did I see other men who poured into me and I wanted to pour back into the organization, but it was also to kind of prove a point that I'm a man. Despite this queerness that I have and this femininity that sometimes supersedes me, I'm still a man. And I wanted my dad to see that. And I was like, this is what I wanted him to see. And maybe he saw it all along, but I never got the chance to stroll for him. I never got to show him. Because remember, In March 2022, I just crossed an alpha. I said I wasn't going back to ATL. And then I went into the program that summer. So I didn't see anybody that summer at all. And then he passed over the summer. So he never got to see that I was an alpha. And then this fall semester, I realized that. And around the time of his birthday, matter of fact, on the day of his birthday, November 6, 2022, I finally accepted the entire thing. I accepted our relationship. I accepted who he was as a whole. I accepted who he was to me, to our family, to our community. I accepted who my dad was. And it wasn't just for the version of who I wanted to be mad at. My dad was goofy. That man was funny. He had charisma out of this world. Like, you know how somebody can just like talk your ear off and like you can't be mad at them because they just so charismatic and funny and cool. That was my dad. He was the type of person who you heard before you saw. Like, like he was a chef. Oh, man was a chef. Like I said, before anything, he was a chef and he could cook. He was creative. My dad used to rock to the day he died. That man was rocking a mohawk and a high right, low left haircut, like he was Roscoe Dash or Nick or MC Hammer from the 80s. Like he was so him. He was his own being. He was him. He was so ATL. He was so Atlanta. It's not even funny. He was just dope. He really was. And I guess I was low-key jealous that I was like, my dad is dope. I'm dope. I want him to see how dope I am. And maybe he did. He just didn't know how to understand it in my way. But I used to look up to him. I really did. I still do. Because no matter what he was going through, he always found a way to go about life still smiling. This podcast is not just about something that I've always wanted to do since I was 17. Even though it's a big part of it. Choosing joy, that in itself, reminds me so much of my dad, man. This man lived a life. He lived a real life. A real hard life, yeah. But you wouldn't really know it, for real. Because he was always smiling. He wasn't telling you about the negative things going on in his life. He wasn't trying to figure out a way for you to help him. He tried to figure out a way for him to help you. That's who he was. For real. That's who he was. He was not the type of person to remain bitter about anything. He was the type of person who wanted to get better about things. And when that grieving process hit me, that's what I channeled in. I channeled in the spirit of my dad. He was like, I don't want to be bitter. I want to be better. And so when I felt all of those nasty, evil feelings, I was like, this ain't the way to honor him. First of all, especially feeling these ways towards him, that's not a way. But also, I want to be better. Because hell, he wanted to be better. He wanted to be better. He still wanted to be better till his last moment. And so I chose from that point on, accepting his loss on his birthday, the same year he passed. Said, I'm going to be better, not bitter. I'm going to choose joy. And I kid you not, I finally went back to therapy about a couple of months after all of that. And I sat down in my counselor's office for the first time in a long time. And I noticed she had this little placard and it said, "Choose joy." So, with all of that said, welcome to Choosing Joy. Thank y'all for listening to this story. Thank y'all for honoring my dad with me on this episode. And thank y'all for just wanting to hear me yap for real. Because it'll be plenty more. Please share this episode with someone you love. I hope that this helps you get through a tough time if you're going through a tough time. And I hope that this inspires you to get better, not be bitter. And that no matter how hard the day, try your very best to choose joy. I'll see y'all, or y'all will hear me. God, I hate being sick. Y'all will hear me in the next one. Take it easy.